Hey everybody, this is Seth Williams from the RE Tipster blog, and I've got Harry here, Harry Asnian. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Awesome, good. Got Harry here. Harry has been a faithful member of the RE Tipster Club for about a couple of years now. Does that sound about right? I
Yeah, I
guess since
think
we
2 to
started it,
3 years or
basically.
so.
Yeah, he was actually one of the first people in the door, and he had a lot of really helpful comments to me in terms of like how to improve the content and make the site better. And just kind of been hearing from him off and on for a couple of years, and I know he's been active and buying and selling deals, but I don't really know a lot of specifics. But whenever we do these conversations, we always learn great things from them. So I wanted to just take up a little bit of his time and learn a little bit more about what his business looks like, what kind of deals he's done, what kinds of lessons he's learned, and hopefully you can learn some things too. So, Harry, how's it going?
It's going great. Glad we got all those audio issues worked out. I
Yeah,
think we're ready to rock and roll.
yeah. Dear viewer, we were dealing with some audio technical difficulties for about 15 minutes before we got started, but it's all clear, so we're good now. But Harry, I guess to get us started, why don't you just tell us, like, how did you first learn about land investing? What made you decide to give it a shot? How did you start this whole thing?
Sure. I actually grabbed it off my bookshelf. I don't know if you can see this,
Oh, okay,
but we got
cool. How to buy land cheap?
How to Buy Land Cheap. It was, I just looked it up. It was written in 1977.
Wow,
That's actually the first way I heard about it. It was
really?
just a book that my brother had bought at a thrift store. I
Wow,
think I
that's
had just
awesome.
gotten out of college and I saw it at his house.
That is really
Um,
cool.
Yeah, so I
What's
asked him if I could have it, and I started digging into it. Mostly, it's about mailing out to the county, mailing out to kind of the Bureau of Land Management, things like that, and just asking for any adjudicated properties.
okay?
But that kind of piqued my interest and got me thinking, you know what, I'd really like a chunk of land out somewhere for dirt cheap, just somewhere to go on the weekend. So that kind of got me started thinking.
That is cool. So the content of that book, like, is it very different from sort of the common way that people buy and sell land in the RE Tipster Club and some of the other educators out there, or how does it differ from?
So that book's a lot more directed at the counties, reaching out directly to the county agencies and different agencies that you can talk to about any kind of unwanted properties that they have or any leftovers,
Sure.
instead of reaching out directly to the seller, which I only do that now. I don't go
Gotcha.
deal with the county for adjudicated properties at all. So that was kind of my first glimpse of it. And then I definitely listened to your podcast on Bigger Pockets, got me kind of gung-ho, ready to start mailing out letters and buying deals.
Sweet. That's awesome, man. What was this like back in 2013, 2014?
Yeah, so I saw the book probably about 7 years ago, maybe. It was a long time ago. And then I didn't actually start taking action. Well, I started reading a lot and kind of starting to educate myself probably 2013. I think it took about a full year to read. And just kind of read everything on your blog probably several times, listened to the podcast that you had done a couple times, and then kind of kicked myself out. And I said, all right, if I don't do anything, I'm just going to sit here and read for the rest of my life. So I decided to mail out some letters.
Cool. Was that a scary first step to, like, did you feel like you were risking lots of money or anything like that? Or?
No, not at all. It was kind of nerve wracking because I had basically I stumbled through my first deal based off your blog, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I figured I might as well just kind of fall through it. It wasn't terribly scary in terms of the amount of effort or the amount of money involved, but just kind of the unknown out there of what if I buy something with $1 million tax lien on it, even though it's like a $500 piece of land. That kind of scared me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually just talking to somebody earlier today who has been through a couple different courses, and they just kind of feel paralyzed, like they can't do anything. And it's funny because I was telling them that, like, a lot of the people that I see who succeed at this, the types of people who just start doing stuff, like they don't necessarily have to have all the facts. They just have to be reasonably sure about what they're doing, like maybe 60 or 70%, and then they just kind of act and sort of figure out their mistakes after the fact. And I don't know, would you describe yourself that way at all, or do you need more certainty than that before you get started?
No, I've think maybe this is one of the first things I've taken that approach. Usually I'm pretty cautious, but I definitely weighed the upsides and the downside too. And I figured what could go wrong? I'd spend a couple $100 on mailers, and worst come to worst, I learned something. I figured out it's not for me, but that definitely wasn't the case. It kind of sparked this passion that's kind of been obsessive between this and rental properties for the last couple of years.
Cool. Do you have rental properties, or where's that at?
Yeah, I do. I actually own 2 duplexes.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and I live in one of them. So we just finished renovating that a couple months ago.
Cool.
Well, I don't know if I should say finished. We the thresholds, a couple of little things we got to polish up, but largely done. We're enjoying it.
That's very cool, man. Good deal.
Yeah.
So when you first got started with the land investing business, did you go to the county, or did you get a list from a data service, or what was your process for getting started?
So when I first got started, I actually did one mailer that didn't lead to any deals. And that I went on to, I think it was the Land Records website. And I figured out the amount of time that could elapse after a tax deed had been sold before it couldn't be redeemed anymore. So I kind of pulled all the tax deeds that I could find from that year specifically. And then I pulled a list of all the ones that had been redeemed and did some Excel wizardry and mailed out I think 200 postcards or so. The second list I did that I got my first deal on was just went straight to the county, talked to their IT department, and got an Excel sheet sent to me, which was definitely the way to go. Much easier.
Like in terms of talking to the IT person, was it hard to get to nail them down and get them to help you, or was it like one of the first people you talked to?
It was probably the second person I talked to. I had called the county and I kind of explained what I wanted, and they were like, I don't know anything about that. You got to talk to John over here. And so they kind of just dumped me on the IT department, and I could talk to him in my own lingo, which just kind of what I do for my day job. So that worked out pretty well.
And you say you work, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, you're in the banking industry and you do, is it software development? Was that what you said?
Yeah, so I'm a project manager for software development.
Has that been a pretty advantageous career to have in terms of, I don't know, is there any overlap between that and the land business that's helped you out at all?
Besides being semi-technically savvy, not particularly, to be honest. Most of the software we work with is like investment banking and trading. So, I mean, same financial concepts, but some of it overlaps a little bit, I guess, but not a whole lot.
Sure. In terms of some of the deals you've done, how many deals have you done to date?
I think I've done about 8 deals so far.
8 deals? Okay.
Yep, and I got another one in the works this weekend. Hopefully it'll bump it up to 9.
Sure. And have you done this all kind of in your home state, or have you been going all over the place, or how did you decide where to start working?
So I live in Louisiana. I don't know if you mentioned that earlier. I live in Louisiana. I looked around at the prices of land here, and it was anywhere $5,000 to $10,000 an acre. So to get my feet wet, I wanted to go somewhere a little further away. Looked at some neighboring states and found something I could drive to if I needed to. Average price of land per acre was about $2,000 to $4,000, so it seemed a little more manageable to get started. So I ended up going out of state to begin with.
In terms of going out of state, like, was there a criteria you used to nail down any specific counties? Like, were you just looking for rural areas, or like any particular state laws that applied to land or anything like that?
No, not particularly. When I got started, I think my thought process was I was looking for an area where it was affordable, which was over the state line by a little bit. And then I wanted something not too far away because I still wasn't really sure if I didn't start flipping land in order to flip it particularly.
Okay.
I'm still actually looking for a chunk of land that I can go out to on weekends. So the thought process was I'd flip anything I didn't want to hang on to, and then I wanted something about within 2 hours drive of my house.
Okay.
Just for the weekends. So I kind of narrowed down the counties.
Okay, awesome. So, like, first deal you did, tell us a little bit about how that panned out. Like, was it a cheap deal? Was it an expensive deal? Was it big acreage? What were some of the details behind that?
So it was kind of like, I think of it like the bread and butter. It was 4 acres, kind of out in the country, but had good road access out to it. I think I ended up paying the sellers $600 and some, and then there were another $1,200 owed in taxes. And then I went through and I researched the property. They actually had deed records online that I could go and research the deed and do basically an abstract and look at everything within the title. and then drafted a deed myself and closed it in-house. Yeah, so I purchased it, 4 acres, about $2,000 all in, and then ended up selling it about 3 to 4 months later for $10,000.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great. And I think I had told you a little bit earlier, a couple of days ago, I was switching jobs, and I had about a month off in between jobs, and that's exactly when that first deal closed, and it gave me a lot of breathing room.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Yeah, kind of definitely a sigh of relief, and figured, well, worst come to worst, I can always just do this full time.
Mm-hmm. That the process of self-closing, I mean, being the first deal you ever did, was that like a intimidating experience? Was that a lot of work to figure out what you were doing?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
It totally was.
Yeah.
I mean, through your website, I'm not sure if I had started kind of looking over the course material that you had put together, but through your website, I was able to piece together, I figured out kind of exactly what I was looking for in the chain of title. I kind of stumbled through it. I grabbed one of the deeds since they were online, and one of the boilerplate deeds that they had from the county, I just typed it up in Word and changed the entities in it, and figured, well, if it worked for them, it should work for me, and kind of just fell through it.
Sometimes it really is that simple. I don't know. It's one of those things that can be, for me, I know it was super intimidating. I had even worked in the banking industry, so like I already kind of knew half of what I needed to know, but even for me, it was kind of, I remember it took me like hours my first time, just kind of stumbling through the documentation and making sure everything made sense. So I applaud you for figuring that out. It sounds like it paid off in the end.
Yeah, definitely. I think knowing what I know now, I spent probably way too much time digging into the details of everything. Because I literally had like a ruler and a pen, and I was sketching out the property lines on a piece of paper to make sure they were right from the legal description. And I was thinking it over for days, and then pulled the trigger.
Cool. Well, you made it. Congrats.
Yeah. Thanks.
So have there been, tell us about your biggest deal to date. What's the one you're most proud of?
So the biggest deal I actually just closed at the beginning of this year. I bought 40 acres. It was timberland that had been had a couple of trails cut through it. I bought it for $23,000. I think it was $12,000 paid to the previous owner, and then about $11,000 in taxes. Yeah, so pretty hefty tax bill. And then I ended up listing it. I had to promote it, market it for about 6 months, and I got someone that bought it for $75,000.
Wow.
Yep, $75,000. I sold it on terms actually at 8% over 20 years. So I think for the next 19 and a half years, I'll be getting $600 a month unless they pay it off early. So
that's great, man. Did you get like a very big down payment on that?
I got a $3,000 down payment, so not a huge down payment.
Okay.
To be honest, I was looking more for the passive income. I'm trying to build up kind of a recurring monthly passive income that I can draw on.
Sure. So $23,000, was that hard to come up with that kind of money, or did you just kind of have it stashed away for this kind of thing?
I just had it stashed away, to be honest. My girlfriend and I live pretty frugally. We have, like I said, we have those duplexes. We live in one of them, and the other side covers our living expenses pretty much. So basically everything we make just goes into gets stashed away for investments.
That's awesome. That's a great discipline to have in life. That's something many people don't. I actually don't even have it, but my wife does, and she forces me to. So that's great for you, man. That's a great deal, though. I mean, over 20 years, that kind of money is going to multiply big time. Like that's going to be a lot you're collecting over the long haul.
Yeah, I actually looked up the number today. It's $144,535.79.
Man, that is sweet.
It's going to be the total.
And that's kind of nice because I know, like, whenever I'm selling with seller financing, I typically don't want to go more than 5 years. And I mean, hearing about your thing, I mean, maybe I should, because the downside about getting paid back so quick is that your passive income goes away faster. But I mean, that's basically like a rental property you're going to be owning for 20 years.
And I figure, I mean, if I'm going to do longer term seller financing like that, I've just got to have really good documentation around it, a really good process for servicing the loans.
Yeah. What are you using for to collect the payments and manage all that stuff? Do you get a loan servicing company, or are you using some software or something?
Yeah, I've been using Cozy.co, Cozy.co.
Yeah.
I actually switched over. I use my rental properties, use that now. Any of the land deals I do use that for recurring payments. It's been really easy to work with, to be honest. I like that software quite a bit.
That's great. Yeah, I've heard great things about that. I actually know Lucas Hall pretty well, who works for Landlordology, which is kind of tied in with Cozy, and yeah, I hear great things. That company is going somewhere.
Yeah, it's worked well so far.
Has that was that buyer pretty happy that you were giving them seller financing option? I mean, it sounds like you gave them a pretty good deal, honestly, just in terms of making it available to them without talking to a bank.
Yeah, definitely. He was really excited. He didn't, when I think about it, I mean, if someone offered me 8% interest right now, when I could go to a bank, with my job, I could probably get a loan at, 3.5%, 4% interest. But I mean, that's not the option for most people, I think, or a lot of people. So he didn't even bat an eyelash at it. 8% interest. He was just really happy that I was able to finance it for him. Mm-hmm. And he pays before the first of the month every month. So it's been great so far.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's something I've found too is, I almost always quote 9.99%. That's just kind of like my go-to rate with seller finance deals. And I'm almost surprised too that people don't seem to care. This is a pretty terrible rate. You realize that, right? You're like, yeah, I don't care.
I actually had one guy, it was the same property. I had a guy under contract and I gave him the 8% interest for the seller financing because I was thinking I might want to just cash out of this property once I got a buyer. That's a whole different part of this story I can tell you about. And I said, you might want to just go to a bank and you get 5% interest on this or whatever. So he called me back and he's like, yeah, I think I might just go to a bank and I'll just pay you in cash for the whole thing. And I went, okay, I'll take it. That sounds good to me.
You're saying this is for a different property, or this is?
No, that was a buyer I had for that 40 acres.
I gotcha.
Same property, but it fell through.
Were they not able to get their financing, or do you know why it fell through?
I think this guy was just a little, it was like a Craigslist find, I think. I don't know. He is a little out there.
Sure.
So he lined everything up. He sent me a check and said he had back surgery. And then his Facebook had pictures of him in a tree stand hunting deer. And it's something just seemed fishy. So I'm glad that fell through.
So in terms of getting your properties sold, what have you been using to do that? Is it Craigslist? Is that kind of like your go-to source for getting buyers?
Yeah, I think I have 3 go-to sources so far. It's Craigslist. Craigslist is definitely probably the first one, I'd say. Mm-hmm. Everything goes up on Craigslist in a couple locations. Then Zillow, which pushes out to Trulia, goes up on there as soon as I can. And then I've been posting on Facebook in local buy-sell groups or real estate groups in the area where the property is.
Mm-hmm. Has that been helpful? Have you gotten a lot of leads from that?
Yeah, I actually sold one a couple months ago through Facebook post.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, everything, even all the transactions I had with a guy were Facebook Messenger, just back and forth. I think I talked to him 2 or 3 times on the phone, but It's pretty easy to deal. Mm-hmm.
That's great. When you do that, is there any tricks or techniques you use? One that I've kind of figured out when I'm doing that is, you kind of post the property and it sort of just goes down and down and down and down. And after, I don't know, a few weeks, I'll delete it and repost the thing. Just kind of keeps it up in front of people's faces. Do you do anything like that, or have you just kind of posted it once and then that's all you needed to do?
No, usually I'll post it and then I find every probably 3 days or so. I think Craigslist lets you bump your post every 3 days. Mm-hmm. You can go and renew it, so it bumps it up to the top of the list. I'll sit there and I'll bump all the posts up to the top of the list, and I'll go on Facebook and I'll just add a little comment on the bottom of each of the posts, which I believe knocks it up to the top of the list as well.
Cool. With Facebook, do you just get inundated with people who want to buy it, or is it sort of like a once in a blue moon thing where a buyer pops up that way?
Yeah, I get just a couple likes and then maybe a comment here or there. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of a trickle. It's not like a really fast. Most of the properties I sell don't go too fast because I guess I've taken a different approach where I don't mark down the property a lot for market value. I'll put it at probably 85 to 90% of market value because I don't mind hanging on to them for an extra 5-6 months if I need to.
Is seller financing, is that something you're really pushing for? You want to sell with seller financing? Is that kind of your goal?
Yeah, in the past it has been. I've got a monthly number I'm targeting of passive income. So seller financing has definitely been the goal. That being said, I'm happy to just take cash for the properties and pour that into marketing and new properties.
If somebody offers you $75,000 of cash, you're not going to say no to that, right?
Yeah, right. Sorry, let me talk to the next person. Right?
I'm curious, going back a few minutes, when you were talking about Cozy, were you pulling credit reports on these people with that, or are you just using it to collect the payments?
So far, I've just used it to collect payments for land deals. For my properties, when I screen tenants, I've actually screened a few tenants through Cozy so far.
Okay.
Pulled credit reports and background checks.
Yeah, because I believe, I mean, if you did want to pull a credit report on a borrower, you could do that through Cozy just as well. It's just that it's all of the references in it talk about like tenants and rental properties, but it does the same thing if you just want an easy credit report.
Yeah, I think going forward, that'd probably be a good thing to start doing, just to have some kind of standards in place for who I'm lending to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Have you had to like repo any properties in Louisiana or wherever you're working?
Yeah, I've got one problem property. It's a nice property. It's 5 acres. I think that one, it was another one of those, bought it for $2,000, sold for $12,000. The person gave me a down payment that largely paid me off and then paid for about 6 or 7 months. They were going to put a mobile home on it and they just told me they had too many problems with their trailer. Mm-hmm. They had to fix it up. They didn't have the money, and luckily they said we just want out of the property, and they signed a quit claim deed back to me.
Cool.
Which cleared the title back up, and then I resold it.
It's a nice path of low resistance. It's good.
Yeah, it definitely helped. Unfortunately, the person who bought it after that paid for about 5 or 6 months, and then got in contact and said that she had like a terminal diagnosis. Basically just needed time to think about what she was doing. So that one I haven't decided what to do with. I basically said, I understand, take a couple months and we'll figure it out after that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a couple like that too. I don't know if it's just like coincidence or if it's like the property itself. It's strange how some just kind of attract problems like that. So we've kind of touched on Cozy a little bit, Craigslist, Zillow, Facebook. Are there any other like specific tools or resources that have been particularly helpful to you in your business, either on the buying side or the research side or selling or anything like that?
Yeah, so I had a couple on the research side that have been helpful, especially being down here by the Gulf.
Okay.
I kind of alluded to it earlier that 40 Acres I was just happy to get a seller on it because I found out that part of it was wetlands or potentially designated as wetlands.
Yeah.
Which really limits what you can do. You can't put fill dirt in to put a road in. It makes construction pretty hard.
That's like government protected, right?
Yeah. The interesting thing is they aren't able to tell you what actually is wetlands. They can tell you it probably is, but you need to have an environmental consultant come out to do a delineation on the property.
I see.
Then it goes to like the Army Corps of Engineers, I believe, to review. But on that note, ArcGIS, ARCGIS.com, is a huge mapping tool that has topo maps.
Okay.
That's been really helpful for me to check topography and also check to see if anything's designated wetlands.
Cool.
So I make sure to always check those going forward after I learn that on that property.
That's a great resource, man. Thanks for sharing that. I don't think I've ever seen that before, but that exact same issue comes up in Michigan all the time. I mean, there's wetlands everywhere up here. So that would be a very helpful thing to be aware of. Hopefully they got GIS stuff in Michigan too.
Yeah, I think it's the whole U.S. at least, maybe even outside of the states.
Yeah,
it's got some great mapping. It has a lot of different base layers too. I think it's got probably about 12 base layers you can swap through to see like satellite, topography, elevation. And
that's all free?
It's pretty good. Yep, everything's free on there.
Sweet. Yeah, I had that issue come up. It was like a seriously scary thing for me. I had this 12-acre property on Lake Huron. At the time, it was the biggest deal I'd ever done. And I was just like, this is amazing. 12 acres with beach frontage and everything. And then I found out after I bought it that like most of it was wetlands. And luckily, there was a section of it that was, it did perk and it wasn't wetlands and you could build a house there. So like, thank goodness. But yeah, it would have been super helpful just to have a faster way to get that information ahead of time. So nice. Anything else you've been using that's been helpful?
A big one that I use is HelloSign as well. Okay. HelloSign.com. That's similar to DocuSign.
Okay.
But they give you 3 free documents that you can have signed per month.
Oh, sweet.
So basically, I've had to use that for free. I haven't been signing more documents than 3 per month anyway. So
that's a pretty good deal.
It's been really helpful turning around some of these deals really quickly.
Have you used DocuSign by any chance?
I think I've used it purchasing the house from my real estate agent. I think I actually used it, but I haven't used it on the sell side or the buy side personally.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a great deal with HelloSign. I wonder if there's if it's just as easy to use as DocuSign, or why doesn't everybody just use that?
I don't know. It's
investigate.
Yeah, it's extremely easy. You upload your document and then you just click where you want the signature to go or the date, and you just click, and select who signs where. It's
cool.
It takes probably about 5 minutes to set up a document total, maybe even less.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'll have to check that out sometime. Anything else?
The other one's pretty basic, but Google Voice is I rely on that a lot.
Yeah.
And I have to carry a work phone as well. So I have two phones, one set up for my buy side and one set up for my sell side.
Okay.
My family laughs at me because they say if it rings my left pocket, that means someone's buying property. If it rings my right pocket, someone's selling me something. And they're just like, "What's wrong with you?"
That's sweet, man. I'm curious, when people respond to your direct mail, are they calling you? Is that the way they get a hold of you typically, or are they going to your website? Or
they mostly call me. I have a few submissions on my website. I put them both on the postcard.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I think from gut feel, what I've seen, it's older people that are calling me back,
mm-hmm.
and they're out in the country usually with, I don't know if it's limited access to internet or they just aren't up on technology, but they prefer phone calls pretty much.
Sure. Okay. Do you try to answer these calls in real time, or do they go to voicemail? Or
No, they all go to voicemail. That's something when I have more free time or when I'm available that I would do, probably answer them in real time. I think probably have a higher conversion rate doing that or build more rapport or trust. But most of it goes to a voicemail. Like you had shown in your course, it's kind of a longer voicemail, weeds out some of the people.
Yeah.
And then that lets me kind of gather my thoughts, do a little preliminary research on the property before I give them a call back.
Mm-hmm. At Google Voice, last I checked anyway, this is probably over a year ago, the voicemail messages had to be less than a minute. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I think mine's somewhere around.
You kind of just whittle yours down to fit within 60 seconds?
Yeah, it took about 4 tries. I had to whittle out paragraphs and then speed up my voice or slow down at certain spots, but I fit it in there.
You sound like a chipmunk or anything when you're talking?
I haven't called my own number in a while. I should probably do that.
Before we move on, any other resources you want to share, or is that those all of them?
One that I'm not super happy with, but I set up Podio. I took quite a while to set up a process flow in Podio to capture leads. It's synced up to my Google Voice so that any messages or any calls I get create a new lead in there. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, at work, I don't know if I should be saying this, at work that website's blocked, so I can't pull it up on my computer to do it. So half my leads kind of come in through pen and paper and half of them go through Podio. There's a lot of stuff that Podio can do, and I think if I whittle it down to kind of the essentials, I could be pretty powerful. But right now I think it's just a little too convoluted for me.
You've been at this since 2013. Do you have any it sounds like you want seller financing to the extent practical, to be a big part of your future and your passive income. Mm-hmm. Is your what is your long-term goal? Where do you want to be in 5 years and in 10 years, and how does land investing play into that?
5 and 10 years I didn't think you'd ask about that far out.
Or 1 year, 6 months, next week.
Well, I'm hoping that I can start doing this full time. Like I said, I got a target number of passive income I'd like, and I want to hit that by my birthday next year in order to leave my job and do this full time. So that's kind of the short-term goal. I made some really good friends down in New Orleans. One of them is an architect. One of them is a construction estimator.
Okay.
They're two of my buddies. And so we've been talking about looking into either flipping some houses to start with and then potentially get into commercial development, possibly down the road. So that's probably the 5-10-year plan, is to get into some of that. But I don't really see stopping land flipping, or to me, in my head, it's direct marketing is what it boils down to. Because whether you're marketing for land or marketing for houses, it kind of goes along the same lines.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think I'll stop doing that though.
With the rental properties you've got so far, did your land deals play into that at all? Did that give you any of the seed capital you needed to buy those, or was that kind of a separate thing?
Largely separate. So before I ever got into real estate investing, I bought that first duplex, and just kind of gut feel was that I wanted one side of it to cover the whole mortgage, taxes, and insurance.
Yeah.
so I got that, and I started looking online. I found Bigger Pockets, which I guess led me to your podcast and the website and everything. So it played into it in terms of that. And then this second house I bought is related to that because I found it as for sale by owner on Zillow, and I talked to the owner directly, and he was out of state, and I had a lot of experience talking to people out of state about selling their properties.
Okay.
And just the closing process in general. So he was kind of, I think, nervous about selling it by himself. So I was able to walk him through a lot of the paperwork and what needed to be done. And just talking to him on the phone, it gave me a lot of confidence, having bought and sold several properties in the past. So that was very helpful.
Yeah, that's it's funny how people will trust you when you can just instill a sense of comfort in them. Like, I'm confident and I know what I'm doing, and just being able to hold their hand and that whole rapport building, just the demeanor you have on the phone can go a long way in getting people to. Every now and then I'll hear from people who, like, what if this seller doesn't trust me, or what if they're not going to take the cashier's check, or and I mean, there's something to that, but like, you kind of underestimate how important it is that you are confident and you know what you're doing.
It goes a long way, and to be honest, it still blows my mind with some of these smaller deals that people will mail you. I mean, just you walk them through the paperwork and everything, and people will mail you a cashier's check for $6,000-7,000 before they get a signed deed back. But I mean, I think it goes back to that confidence, and I mean, to be honest, having a website online, I know I shouldn't be crossing them over because I don't have a sell side website, but when I talk to people that are buying a property from me, they'll look up kind of the company name, and they'll see that we do have a web presence, and it looks official and clean and polished. And I've had at least 3-4 people tell me that that's why they decided to go with us, or that's why they weren't worried about it.
Do you have any like pictures of yourself or a video on the website or anything like that?
I don't. I've been meaning to rewrite my website. I think it's kind of a generic, we buy land, we want to buy your land. So I was thinking of adding a picture of myself and then just kind of cutting out a lot of the fluff and getting down, just kind of consolidating it down, see if I can get it to convert better. Yeah.
I've seen websites of, people in the forum where like the website itself is like nothing special, like it's something anybody could do, but they do have a video of themselves, just like, it's like a minute long. They're just saying, hey, my name is whatever, and you probably got a postcard from me, and I buy land, and this is what I do. So if you want to sell it, just leave me submit your property, and I'll get back to you. Like, just the simplest thing in the world, but somebody being willing to put their face on the website and just be a real human being. I mean, it does a lot just in terms of communicating trust to other people, I think. So,
yeah, I think I could see that going a long way. I'm actually, this weekend, I'm driving up to a property that I'm looking to get a contract signed. We have a verbal offer agreement, but I'm actually going to drive up there to sign the paper with them. I think that'll go a long way.
Yeah.
That one could be I think this weekend could be a good deal.
Cool. Yeah, you'll have to let me know how that goes. So you were saying you basically set a date by which you want to be retired or doing land full time. Is that, do you think that's achievable? I mean, is it a long shot, or are you kind of like almost there?
I'm a little under halfway there, I think. But I think with the amount I have coming in passively, it covers our living expenses and some saving. So now anything else I make is kind of above and beyond that. I think it's going to be a push to get it done by, end of February next year. It's coming up quick, but I mean, I'm doing it one way or another, so I better start figuring it out.
Yeah. I do know, like, just in my experience, like, I went years with my job, probably longer than I needed to, but it wasn't until a couple friends of mine challenged me to set a date. And I heard some podcast saying the same thing. Like, there is no force more powerful than setting a date. And it does a weird thing, like, it just kind of calls you to the carpet and says, look, man, get serious about this or go home. And I don't know that maybe I'd still be working my job today if I hadn't done that.
Yeah, I kind of threw out, I don't know if I was serious when I had said it. It was on my birthday more or less this past year. And I said, all right, next year I'm going to retire. On my birthday, I'm going to do it. And I said that for a couple months. I don't know if I truly believed it. I wanted it, but I actually went a step further and I downloaded an app on my phone that counts down the days.
Oh, yeah.
So
cool.
I think I'm at 208 days today. And I look at it every morning when I get up, pull that up and look at it and go, all right, time to get going.
That's a nice motivator. And I know something, sometimes it's easy to worry about what would happen if it didn't work out, or what if you quit too soon. But I mean, just looking at somebody like yourself, I mean, you're clearly a very well-spoken, talented individual who knows how to get things done. I mean, worst case scenario is you get another job if you have to. It's like you might have some downtime, exactly. But I mean, if you're geared up truly to move on from your job, and then if something doesn't work out, it's like it's not the end of the world. You can bounce back from that.
That's true. I'm sure I can find another job, but I'm taking the kind of burn all the bridges. Not that I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory or anything, but once I make that switch, I don't intend to go back.
I'm going to make a point of cussing out everybody on the last day.
Yeah. One by one on my way out. There you go.
That's probably the wisest thing to do. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. And film it all. I'll be famous.
So that leads into our next question. Any big lessons you've learned along the way? Good or bad experiences you want to share with people?
I've been meaning to sit down and write a list of things just to keep next to my desk to remind myself as I go along. One of them is really simple. It's just, it will sell. Like sometimes I second guess myself on these properties.
Yeah.
And like, am I going to lose money on it? Should I have even bought this? Eventually, I mean, there's a buyer for everything. You just have to make it look right, and you have to connect with enough people for them to find it. It will sell. That's the first thing my mantra when I'm worried about a property.
That's a huge lesson, man. That is huge. I still struggle with that today. When I get properties that aren't selling within a week, I just like, oh my word, what did I do? This is a huge mistake. But it's true. Yeah. I mean, I've never had a property that didn't sell eventually. Sometimes it's
I'm just writing things, but big letters next to my desk and write that. I got a couple others I got to come up with, but there are things I keep telling myself after it happens. I'm like, oh yeah, I said the same thing a month ago. Mm-hmm. I had some big revelation that's really not a big revelation at all. So I want to ramp up my deals. I just need to mail more. So I'm going to start setting targets for the amount I want to mail per month. And kind of along those lines, just if you hone in your filter the best you can. Mm-hmm. Like I decided the way I invest, I've only done about 8 deals or so, but it's because I don't particularly want to do small mobile home lots or house lots at the moment. Yeah. I'm looking for larger acreage that has kind of a bigger dollar value, kind of more bang for your buck. So I'm just going to filter out all the smaller ones and just really hit those bigger ones hard. So I guess the lesson learned is just filter to avoid wasted time on the phone. Just filter out your list the best you can, and then increase the mailers to increase the deals.
When you say filter, are you talking about like filtering a list you get from the county or filtering a list you download from some service?
I pretty much only deal with the county now. I used Agent Pro 24/7 for some mailers within New Orleans. I was going to try to buy some house lots here, but the return rate was 30%. It was just, it was bad.
Something right there.
Yeah, my P.O. box is filling up.
It's disappointing.
So I mean, I've got some leads. Yeah, I got some leads off it as well. And I think probably from what I've read, those return mailers are worth digging into, especially if they're higher value properties. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not all bad, but I mean, filtering from a county list, going through, taking the assessed value or the assessed acreage and just dropping all the ones below 1 acre or 2 acres, just dropping those out. Mm-hmm.
Would you say do you kind of have like a handful of counties that you keep hitting again and again, or are you still like exploring new areas and finding new counties to dig into?
I'm still exploring new areas and finding new counties. I've mailed to, I think, 2 counties twice. The rest of them have been just kind of single hits. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty, some of them, I mean, it's pretty noticeable. Some counties are just duds. Mm-hmm. You just don't get a lot of calls back, or the calls you get back that they just aren't worth what it's owed in taxes. Mm-hmm. So I've got a couple that I like to go back to, but I'm still kind of feeling out counties. I think there's a lot more opportunity out there.
Sure. Are the counties in your area, or the places you've been working, do they have like reliably consistent and good systems online to like get the information you need, or is it like relearning everything every time you do in a county?
No, they're pretty bad. Most of them, especially like rural counties, are just don't have anything online. Mm-hmm. I at least go on to Agent Pro 24/7 and make sure that I can pull up the parcel lines for a property before I mail out to the county. Because because if I'm just flying blind, then it's just too hard to, if you have to call to find how much is owed in taxes and you don't even know where the property is, it's just too hard to kind of work through it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I'm with
so
you.
If anyone's listening, I guess they can go to those counties and probably knock them dead. But
yeah, I know. If you could find a way to get those parcel lines where that's the first thing that makes me say no too. Like it's such a hassle if it's not there.
I actually talked to a county resource that they were putting together the shape files for the GIS system for their county, and they hadn't made it public yet. And I told him, I was like, well, I'm happy to review what you guys have if you give me access to that. And he was like, oh yeah, I think we could probably do that. And I thought I had hit a gold mine that no one else could see where the parcel lines were in that county, but
yeah, man,
I kind of fell through.
Oh, you never got
probably ask him. That was a year ago or so. I should probably call him back and ask and see what's going on.
Yeah, man. Some counties I've talked to, getting that GIS file, like if they don't make it public and you just want to get the file for your own use to like plug into Google Earth, they'll charge like thousands for this thing.
Really?
So, yeah, it's that's why, systems like, Parlay. Have you heard about Parlay? Have you ever?
Mm-mm.
They've got a product called Parlay 2.0 that you can. It's a big KMZ file that you can integrate with Google Earth, and it lays out parcel lines like all throughout the U.S. Not everywhere, but in like probably 80% of the counties out there, maybe more. And it makes it way, way easier. And it costs like $300 a year, I think, to have this file active, but it's a heck of a lot better than paying thousands for one county.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I had never heard of that.
Yeah, maybe worth checking out. I mean, it could be one of those things where like maybe the parcel lines aren't in Agent Pro, but they are in Parlay. So it could be a good like cross-reference thing. I don't know if we've already talked about this or not, but have there been any big like surprises to you as you've been figuring out how to buy and sell land?
I think we touched on a couple of them. Just the fact that I told one of my coworkers today, I'll tell you, if we have time, I'll tell you a little bit about the deal I'm checking out this weekend.
Yeah, sure. Let's hear it.
It's not a usual one that I look into, but I told the person I look into it, it's a 3-bed, 2-bath mobile home that's permanently attached on 6 acres of land that's been cleared and just has oak trees on it.
Okay.
For $8,000.
Wow.
And so I told my coworker about this, and he was like, no. He's like, why would anyone ever sell something worth $60,000 to $70,000 for $8,000?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's the biggest surprise is I hear that from people all the time. Getting over the fact that when you're making these offers, you can make extremely low offers, and just because of the person's situation, they'll be willing and they'll be happy actually when you get the right person to accept the offers you're putting out there. Has been just a huge surprise to me.
It's a good surprise.
Yeah, definitely a good surprise. On the other end of things, finding out about wetlands and floodplains down in the Gulf has been not such a good surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of been the big one that had fallen off my radar when I was doing research on properties. It never occurred to me to look at wetlands. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's just added into my repertoire now, and make sure I check it on all the properties going forward.
Have you ever gotten like burned by that, or has it just been kind of like a scary, ooh, that was close type thing?
Well, actually, that was the 40 acres, the best deal that I've had so far. That's where I found out about it. Yeah. And I actually just bought another 13-acre parcel that likely has some wetlands on it, but not on the whole property. So I think it's still buildable for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the interesting thing is when I was talking to the county, even though it's wetlands, you can still build on it. There's just certain Yeah, you have to get approval from a board, but there's certain limitations on how you can build on it. And if it's like a large enough footprint, you might have to mitigate it by setting aside a separate piece of land for it. I almost backed out of a deal with someone because it was that 13 acres was a decent amount of wetlands. The person in the county told me, no, you can, that's not a deal killer at all. You can build on that.
Would it have to be like on stilts or something, or you just get a houseboat and just set it right there?
I guess you probably put it on piers. Most of the houses down here in Louisiana and around the Gulf Coast are on piers anyways.
Okay.
A lot of them. So yeah, I figure you just build it up a little bit and you don't pour a slab, so you aren't really impacting the surface area too much.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of weird caveats for better and worse that can come up in any county. And like you don't learn about them until you just start asking around and seeing what's going on. But
Yeah,
it's one of those weird things where like what could apply in my area might not apply in your area and vice versa. So there's a lot to learn.
and that's
everywhere we
why.
go.
Yeah, I've kind of just picked one state and just stuck to it, just so I can, at least till I'm comfortable, I can get my focus and get some background on how to buy properties in that one area before I branch out too far.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which has helped.
there is something to be said for that. I mean, every state has a lot of new things you have to learn, and if it's working for you, and it sounds like it is, I don't know why you need to change everything up. So it may just be worth sticking it out there if it's working. Well, for anybody who's watching this, who's thinking about land investing, do you have any words of advice for them?
Very profound words. Just get started. You can read forever, but actually just go out, mail some postcards, talk to some people and fall through it. Just pick, like I said, pick a certain area, get familiar with it, and then kind of just follow the process that Seth's laid out either on the blog or on in the course. And that pretty much walks you through enough to get through a deal. Any questions you have, I mean, there are tons of people out there that are happy to answer your questions. So no reason not to start. If you don't start, then you'll sit there and analysis paralysis forever.
Great words of advice there. I appreciate that, Harry. Anything else you want to talk about, or any other deals or lessons or anything you want to mention before we wrap it up?
No, not right now. I think probably have a good story after this weekend going to see a mobile home on 6 acres. That'll it's going to either turn out really well or really poorly. Usually I don't deal with mobile homes, but
yeah, I usually run away when I hear about those, but you never know. There could be unique
this
circumstances.
This one's cheap enough. It might be one it's out in the country, kind of surrounded by fields, so it might be one we just hang on to for a weekend enjoyment.
You said it was permanently affixed to the land? There's a foundation under it or something? Or
I don't know if they had bricked it in or there's some type of foundation that they had set up for it. Yeah. So it's like a modular home, I guess, instead of a mobile home.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I'm just trying to think if it's just a nightmare of a property. I wonder if you could just demolish the thing or get rid of it and it would still be worth your while.
I figured, that's kind of why I'm going up there to see before I sign the contract. If it's a total nightmare, then I'll probably just not deal with it. But if it's a mobile home or if it's able to be put on a semi, I'm sure I could just put it on Craigslist for free and say, hey, someone get this thing off my property for free.
It's a great idea.
Should work.
Cool, Harry. Well, thanks again for taking your valuable time to talk to me and for letting everybody else listen in on our conversation. I appreciate that. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we will see you later.
All right. Thanks, Seth.
You bet.
Bye.